Guess whose Christmas is ruined now, Mom? This is gonna be pretty long and insane, so I'll include a TLDR at the bottom. I'm 30 male, moved from the central US to the northwest coast when I was 22, mostly to get away from my crazy mother. Most of my family were all enablers of her behavior because they found it easier to just go along with it than fight with her on it. Save for my 3 older sisters who got out of Dodge because they could not take her crap. One of them even moved to Canada, so yeah, I was not the only boy, but also the youngest, which made me a perpetual baby in my mother's eyes. So my mother often tried to infantilize me growing up. She tried to spoon feed me when I was 16, then complained I wasn't being supportive of her, which I refused to let her do things like that. Then gaslight me when I did not cave to her whining. Her behavior has been manipulative and narcissistic for as long as I can remember. She tended to make everything about her. Some referred to her as having a queen mother complex. She always expected to be honored and revered on any holiday, because even my birthday had to be all about her, even when she did none of the work or planning. She showed up to my 21st birthday in an outfit that looked like a wedding dress of some sort, then expected me to escort her by arm everywhere from the moment she arrived. We were just celebrating in a local bar, not some sort of fancy club. So that went about as well as you can expect, and she made a huge fuss saying I was humiliating her on her day. Yeah, when I remarked that it wasn't her day, it was my day, she threw a tantrum and ran out like a teenage girl who'd just been dumped at the prom. And that wasn't all. She had some of other habits that were unbelievably creepy towards me. She attempted to sit in my lap a few times and said she wanted cuddles. I openly called that weird, and she repeated her usual pouting and gaslighting. When she was 45, she started openly talking to other people near me about wanting to get a facelift and breast implants to look 20 years younger, and she'd give me the side eye while doing it. But my father adamantly said he'd never pay for such unneeded stuff. That sparked many fights when she called him unsupportive, then would spend weeks playing the victim. We were never big churchgoers, but she dragged my father and I to the local Mormon church on random Sundays, when she wanted to try and get back at me for not enabling her. We weren't even Mormons, but it was the closest church to us. She once put me on the spot trying to infantilize me in front of an entire congregation of people after the sermon, and I called her out on it, what she was really doing. Then I just walked out. That was the last straw. I moved out to rent a small room at a friend's parents' house for $200 a month. When I was packing to leave, she was begging me to stay almost the entire time. I told her I was her son, not her husband, and I was sick of the creepy way she acts around me. I had my own life to live, after all. She just ran away sobbing, and we didn't talk for months. I learned from my cousin that she was going around saying I'd come running back to her any day now, but when I didn't, she lost her mind. My mother, even years after I became an adult, openly talked to me like a small child in front of people and expected me to just go along with it. And when I didn't shed first, give me an expression like she was pleading with me. But I just stayed stone-faced. That made her grab me by the arm and try to drag me outside like a little kid to loudly whisper in my ear. But I always refused to let her, and even threw her off a few times when she refused to let go of my arm. The last time she attempted that, she dug her nails into my shoulder. So I swatted her hand away so hard that there was a bruise left on it. That made her switch to mostly emotional manipulation. We both went to my uncle's birthday party, and while she was there openly following me around and loudly talking to my aunt about the way I used to breastfeed as a child anytime she was close to me, and even she laminated, she could not still make me do that, and gave me that pleading look again. I wanted to throw up. My aunt was visibly disgusted as I told her about the lot of previous things she's done, but I guess she never really believed it was as bad as I said it was until that day. When I refused to cater to my mother at the party, she eventually broke down and loudly stated she was the matriarch. and that what she says goes. Then tried to order me to come to her like a little boy, to which I reminded her that I did not live with her anymore, nor did I have to do as she said. I wasn't a child. And then several other family members backed me up for the first time ever, which actually shocked me. That made my mother screech at us all and leave, only to call me multiple times later and try to gaslight me over the phone. I let it go to voicemail. Before making the choice to leave my home city, I had a girlfriend there I really liked. We'd been dating a few months and she wanted to meet my family. I was skeptical and warned her about my mother, but she must have thought I was just joking. Boy, was she surprised. My mother was especially passive-aggressive towards her when they first met, because she was, quote, taking her baby away. As we both heard her say to a relative over the phone in the kitchen when she thought no one else was listening. And then later, while cutting a cake she baked, my mother gave me at the time my girlfriend an eerie stare while holding a large cutting knife. Needless to say, that poor girl could not deal with my mother for very long, and we ended things amicably soon after, because she never wanted to risk having someone like my mother as a mother-in-law. Sadly, I had to completely agree. So when I told my mother I was moving over 1,000 miles away, she went ballistic. She tried her best to latch on to me and says that she would not allow it, but I threw her off and said she did not have the power to stop me. I'd save as much as I could for years and bought a truck and a camper trailer. Then I spent the next 2 years living out of the camper while working a simple job in Northern California. During this time, I did not bother to keep in contact with any of my family at all. Eventually, I met someone new, and she and I are still together to this day, though neither of us are really interested in marriage or children. When I finally broke the no contact with my parents in 2016, I laid down some ground rules. They were to treat me with respect of an adult. They would not pester my girlfriend, and they would not speak to me like a child or bring up anything from my childhood. Well, no surprise, my mother could not do any of those when we actually came to visit for Thanksgiving. So I told her I was done, not to bother calling me until she realized I'm a grown man. She tried to block the door and started quoting the Bible about how parents should be respected by their children. I told her she did not respect me, so I would not respect her. In December of that year, I got multiple phone calls, emails, and text messages from her, begging me to come to Christmas and not to bring my girlfriend. I said if she wasn't welcome, then I'm not going. She called me unreasonable and called my girlfriend an interloping chick to our special bond. And no woman should come between a mother and son. Then practically ordered me to go. When I refused, she started making empty threats of self-harm. I told her she can do what she likes with her own body, but I would not be coming to Christmas and would instead be spending it with my girlfriend's family. My mother said I'd regret that decision and ended the call in a rage. Well, 2 days before Christmas, the door to the small house my girlfriend and I were renting, it was kicked open by the police, who were convinced that we were running a meth lab. We were detained and interrogated while police turned our yard into nothing more than a flea market, as a lot of our furniture and personal belongings were brought outside and arranged in rows to be inspected. They went through the house with a fine-toothed comb with drug-sniffing dogs, obviously finding nothing more than aspirin and some medication I have from a time of depression. Needless to say, they were visibly disappointed by their findings. I guess they figured they'd get some big drug bust or something. Turns out this all happened because my crazy mother had called them and gave them details that were not true. She had been stalking us at some point. She claimed that I was using my camper as a front to sell meth. My guess is she watched a lot of Breaking Bad. When police found nothing in the house, both vehicles and the camper, they were forced to put everything back and let us go. Understandably, we were furious, but I could not really do anything other than file a complaint. They've caused damage to the house that my landlord was angry about. As a major stroke of my karma, my mother was arrested during her own Christmas party in front of most of the family. The investigation later showed that she's taken a flight to my state, and then spent a few days following us around taking pictures of me, my girlfriend, and our home. She'd broken in and photographed everything she could, right down to the underwear in my dresser. That part was especially creepy, and police found she's documented where I worked and what times my girlfriend and I were usually home. We're not really sure what her overall goal was, but it's likely involved more than just trying to give me a scare with the cops. I filed a restraining order, and my mother spent 2 years in jail for filing a false police report and stalking. While my mother was away locked up, I reconnected with my family, and they all admitted that they've known for years the way she was around me. They were sorry about not doing anything to help, especially my father. He cried while giving me a hug, apologizing over the phone. He filed for divorce after my mother was released from jail, and in the divorce, my mother got the house, mainly because my father no longer wanted it, and agreed to let her have his share in exchange for a clean split. The court ruled he did not have to pay any alimony anyways, because they were already both retired. So he chose to move closer to me and now lives in the same state out at an Airstream trailer he already owned since the 90s along the West Coast. He said he spent his evenings sipping on tea and watching the waves crash, and he couldn't be happier. My mother did not take the divorce well and tried to draw it out as long as she could, but several family members came forward with witness statements. My sisters all showed up to speak about what she was really like, and some relatives even had some recordings about the creepy things my mom used to say. On top of all that, it got out that my mother had not only cheated on my father, but done so multiple times with different men, a few of which came forward during the divorce with proof. The judge ended up refusing to let my mother draw out the divorce any longer, and even her lawyer told her to let it go if she wanted to keep her pension intact. And when it was all over, my mother has basically been left alone in this old family home. Hardly anyone wants to do anything with her. She's reached out to me on several occasions, but I just told her this was the result of her own doings. And now she had to live with it. She tried to say she was going to therapy, but I told her that she should have done that a long time ago. And I really didn't care anymore, because she can't undo the things she's already done. She just cried and hung up the phone, and I haven't spoken to her since. What's up guys, Mr. Reddito here. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. So this story gets even crazier. I thought that would be it. OP would go no contact, but oh no. OP's posted a second post on the profile and I found it. So I'm going to read that post now. While I did press charges on my mother for stalking me and trying to frame me as a drug dealer, I didn't want to spend much time in court because that meant being near her. So the events I'm about to describe are half from me and half from my dad. They probably aren't very accurate. It was 5 years ago, so please don't savage me if anything sounds off. It's something I've mostly tried to put behind me and block out. To start off with, my dad actually did not know that my crazy mother had taken a flight to my state to stalk me. She claimed to him that she was just going to take a small vacation away from everyone for her own mental health. Never said where she was going. My poor father did not know what she was about to do, or he'd have warned me. My mother then spent several days secretly following me and my girlfriend around with her smartphone. She used the spare key we kept hidden inside of a fake rock to get into the house that we were living in at the time. She then photographed everything she could, even more intimate things I'd rather not describe. Then after she returned home, my dad said she looked really smug about something. He described it as the kind of look someone has when they think they've won. And she seemed unusually happy and giddy until police came and arrested her on Christmas. Dad said she was bawling her eyes out and saying she didn't do anything wrong. She was being carted out by the cops. The evidence against her was clear. All the photos were found on her phone, and my dad quickly realized what she's done. The call my mother made to claim I was selling drugs, she made that call on her own smartphone. The call was recorded and was very much traced back to her phone quite easily. When my mother was confronted with the evidence, my dad said she just started crying and begging. And when she refused to get up from the table, the police had to move her. Dad said she just went totally limp, refusing to cooperate at all. No one bailed her out of jail either. She had to use her own money to get herself out. Dad said she wanted to call to beg to me, but I guess in a rare moment of clarity, she figured out there's no way in hell I'd bail her out after what she's done. So she spent a while locked up before finally using her money to get herself out on bail. She didn't try to run, no. In fact, she firmly believed herself to be justified in what she's done, and felt like she could sway a judge to her point of view. Her lawyer advised she just pleads guilty and gets a lesser case. So she fired him and said she'd represent herself because she's not saying she's guilty. Well, that went about as well as you guys could imagine. She was in court faster than I thought, and my girlfriend and I had to fly over to testify against my own mother. But I only stayed as long as they needed me, and I was on the first flight I could get back. But while I was there, my mother seemed to stare at me almost constantly. The stares ranged from her creepy pleading look to absolute rage. When my mother took the stand, she gave a speech about why she believed she was right. I needed to be taught a lesson for refusing to come home and for putting some chick before her. Because she should have been the only woman I ever needed. She also tried to keep staring at me the entire time she was making the speech, but the judge repeatedly told her not to do that. I left before the sentencing. The judge believed Mother to be mentally unwell, but when he stated that she went off on him, that she must be completely sane. Of course, that just made her look more crazy. She said she was just a mother looking out for her son, and did what she had to do to teach me a lesson. My dad spoke up and said if she was really looking out for me, she would not have tried to make her own son into her second husband, or frame me for crap I didn't even do just for refusing her. That made her go off on him, and guards had to keep them apart. The judge was originally going to be more lenient on my mother, but decided she needed some real time behind the bars, and sentenced her 2 years in federal prison with 3 years probation. When she was sentenced, my mother went full toddler mode, pulling the biggest tantrum, pounding her fist and crying like a little baby. She had to be carried out of the courtroom because she refused to cooperate again. My dad described the next 2 years without her there as being absolute bliss, and made up his mind that he'd be ready to divorce her as soon as she was out. And I mean giving her the papers on the very first day she came home. That was the same day he left the house for good. He owns an Airstream trailer and parked it at a friend's house. From there, he spent months fighting my crazy mother in divorce. That's when more crazy crap about her came out. My dad eventually won and moved to my state with his trailer as soon as he could. Aside from a few rare phone calls from her, I've not associated with my mother again, and neither has my dad. He spent some time just living as a retired man on the coast, but then decided to get a simple part-time job in a fish cannery because, well, he was bored. He says it pays the bills and he's made a lot of new friends. He's happy. Well, I'm happy he's happy. I visit him on weekends when I can, and my mother, though, I've not spoken to her in 2 years. Any number she ever used to call me with after court was blocked. Guys, I'm finally done with her. Alright, let's break this story down with the top comment to kind of get ahead on our things. I feel for this guy. I had something similar, but this was 1,000 times worse. She never went after girls I dated, but she'd stare at me or try to cuddle me while I slept after I was an adult. Wasn't that too cool? Nor her telling me how she'd sleep in my bed when I wasn't home for my scent. Yeah, she liked to smell my pillows. Or how many times she opened her bathroom door and forgot to wear any clothes. How inconvenient. Or how she'd want to walk arm in arm where we were out in public. Or saying how special my birthday makes her feel. Or asking to see my private parts when I was a teenager. To see how I've matured in her eyes. Yikes, guys. That was a crazy comment. I don't see how that could be 1,000 times better. But anyways, the next story we're going to look at is titled, OP Friend Cheated on Her Fiancé and Was Proud of Herself. This is one of the stickiest situations that we found two friends in. And these stories on the channel, guys, let's hop right into it. I'm 28 female, and my best friend Erin, since middle school, recently stopped enjoying her company because she's turned into a very vain person and started copying every single thing that's unique about me. My hobbies, interests, restaurants I go to, exact workout routines, even down to my employer. It's extremely frustrating, and it feels like she's constantly trying to compete with me, or fish for complaints. Pretty exhausting. Anyways, she recently told me that she cheated on her fiancé of 7 years with a co-worker. She slept with him over 3 times in a short period of time. She's honestly pretty proud of herself and told me she has zero remorse. Doesn't plan on ever telling her fiancé. They plan to buy a house together early next year, and her fiancé's a great guy and has always treated her well and been friendly with me. Last week, I hung out with her, probably for the last time for a while, and tried to convince her again, just tell her fiancé, and told her I'd never be comfortable around him again. She told me to just put it out of my mind like she does. Yeah, she said that she could forgive herself for one time and anything else would be wrong. Well, it wasn't one time, it was 3. I told my husband, and he wants to create a fake account or tell one of his friends to anonymously tell her fiancé, so that he doesn't waste his life with her. Well, I'm torn because I don't feel like it's our place to involve ourselves in her business, but it's also terrible for her fiancé that he'll never know she's a cheater otherwise. My husband thinks I'm condoning her behavior if I don't tell him, especially since I haven't been wanting to be her friend anymore for other reasons lately. Do I allow him to be someone to tell the fiancé and risk it coming back to me and starting drama? And losing other long-term friends from our friend group? Please, guys, let me know what you would do. What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. So there's 2 updates on this story, and let me just tell you, things start to go... Well, let's just get into it, guys. I hope you're having an amazing day. Here's update number 1. I have an update to this saga I posted a couple days ago. My friend that copies me, constantly competitive and on the phone as of lately, told me she cheated on her fiancé of 7 years with a coworker she's been obsessing over and was proud of it. I came here to ask what I should do, and everyone said my husband or I should tell the fiancé instead. I told her that I was disgusted with her and would not be her friend or respect her until she told him. Suddenly, her tune completely changed. She was remorseful, said she was losing sleep, and she did feel terrible. And I was completely right. I never replied to her because still, you haven't told him, so what are you even talking about? A couple hours later, she came back to me saying that she told him the truth. She was calm and clear-headed and relayed complete monologues that apparently were said between them. She said that he was angry at first, but then he came down from it and decided he wants to work things out and sleep in the same bed tonight. She said ridiculous things like, quote, "He asked me what you would do, and I told him you would leave me, and said he wishes he was as strong as you. And quote, he said that I can stop carrying around this heavy burden now and feel better about it." At first I believed her and was relieved she changed her mind and told him so quickly. But then a few things just did not add up. It just seemed so shady and bizarre that he would find out she slept with another guy and just be completely over with it in a matter of hours. Also, why the heck would he be mentioning me during a fight like this? My husband said she's completely manipulating me and is afraid that since I have a guilty conscience, I'm going to tell him. My husband thinks that she's just pretending to tell him and never actually did, so that she could keep me as a friend and keep me quiet. My husband thinks I should follow up with the fiancé innocently to see how things are going for him and see if he knows what I'm referring to or is caught off guard. I haven't replied to her and probably never will again. I just wanted to update you all from my last post. Well guys, Mr. Reddito here. Turns out that's not your last post, OP. Guys, here's the third update. Okay people, third and definitely final update this time, pertaining to my friend, who cheated on her fiancé and was proud of it. I'm kind of tipsy after a happy hour with my coworker, so don't mind the typos. I knew she was lying, or at least wasn't telling the full truth when she had said that she told her fiancé the truth about her affair. Well, I messaged him. All I said was this: "Hi." Well, he didn't reply for a day. I had every intention of telling him everything if/when he replied. The next day, he got back to me and said, "Hey, so, thank you for all that you did to get me to find out the truth. I told Erin that you messaged me, and suddenly the full truth came out. At first, she told me that the hookup was just once with a random guy at the bar. But thanks to you, I learned the whole darn truth. I'm so lost and I don't know what to do." He said he believed she was remorseful because she spent all day in bed after being depressed and crying. I told him the truth, that I think she's not remorseful and she's not sad at all for you. She's sad she got caught and everyone will know her true character. She didn't get away with living her fantasy and deceiving everybody. Her biggest mistake was telling an honest person what she's done. Me. He went and told her everything I said. I know this because a mutual friend that I have kept me updated, and said she told her that I was a bad person for speaking ill of her to her fiancé. So, I don't know, I'm separating myself from both of them from here on out. But my job here is done. He knows the truth, and she's fully exposed. Who knows what he'll do from here?